Some guys are coming to the Klae Corporation from the government for some reason. It's all very hush-hush, but at least the guy running things is a friend of Walter's.
Welcome to the West Coast. Dr. Kenneth Maynard is the director of the U.S. National Security Agency. I'd like you to meet Dr. Kate Weston.
How do you do?
Dr. Weston.
And her husband, Dr. Dan Weston.
Dr. Maynard. Dr. Weston. We're up to our ears in doctors.
Doctor?
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 Paula Simon, my executive assistant. One of Washington's brightest and best, and I am afraid to say a traitor to her country. This brilliant, attractive young lady is the spearhead of a major espionage penetration. She's stolen vital defense information.
The problem is they can't figure out how she's doing it. She's been under surveillance for a while now. They check everything she takes in and out of the place, and nobody's ever found anything incriminating on her. They want the Klae resource to find out her secret. Shouldn't be difficult.
It's more than a murder. This happened 2 days ago in a downtown street in Washington, D.C. in broad daylight. Nobody saw anything. Nobody heard a gunshot. He was an SIA agent, one of the best. He was assigned to Paula Simon.
Or maybe it will be difficult. But Daniel likes a good puzzle, and he has two. How is Paula Simon smuggling documents out, and how did they kill that guy so smoothly? Kate will go to work as Paula's assistant, which will get Daniel inside. They have a fake eyes-only document for Paula to examine, and once that gets rolling, Daniel will shadow her everywhere she goes.
I see that Dr. Maynard has already had extensive interviews with you.
Apparently, he's anticipating an increased workload. He interviewed several people while he was on the West Coast.
Well, I apologize for treating you like a job applicant. Why do you want to work for the government?
The usual reasons. I want to live in Washington. Prestige, pension, maybe even a little patriotism.
When I watched this the first time, I knew she looked familiar. If you're a fan of the original Star Trek, she should. One of the most powerful episodes of that show that I saw was called The Conscience of the King. A brutal dictator had assumed a new identity as an actor. He comes to the Enterprise accompanied by his daughter when suddenly people who recognize the dictator start dying. Barbara Anderson here played the daughter, Lenore Caridian, and her performance may be one of the most memorable of the entire series. If you're not familiar with it, it's Season 1, Episode 13. Find it on your favorite streaming service and see what I mean. Paula doesn't believe Kate. She has to have an ulterior motive for leaving the Klae Corporation, taking a huge pay cut, and working here. Before Kate can talk any more about it, the planted document is delivered.
What does eyes only mean?
You can't take it with you. You have to read it while they stand guard. They stay here until you sign it back to them. I'm sorry, but I'm going to have to terminate this interview. I have my in-house homework to do.
Why don't I come back tomorrow?
All right, my secretary will set up the appointment.
Fine.
Daniel is watching to see how she does it. You've probably already figured it out, but he sure can't. She reads it over, some stuff about the country's nuclear preparedness, gives it back, and that's that.
Share the joy falling in love can bring. No one can tell me that I'm too young to know. I love you so, and you love me.
That's Tony Bernard, her boyfriend. The other two guys are government agents that we met earlier in Walter's office. We have to listen to Tony finish butchering Our Day Will Come while Daniel talks to Kate and brings her up to date on what he's learned, which is to say, nothing.
Tony, you and I know that I'm not peddling papers just for the money. There's more to it.
You're different from the rest of us. You've got something on you, and I don't want to know what it is. I just want to help you.
But I'm not just another one of Tony Bernard's little foxes.
He says, it started out that way, but I really do care about you, more than I ever planned to.
I don't want anything to happen.
What's that supposed to mean?
It's just what it sounds like. A threat. Well, not from me. From the contractor. Do you know that SIA agent? The one that was hit in the street? It was my fault.
He saw the guy watching them and was afraid he saw something important, so he told the contractor about it. Within an hour, the guy was dead. She wants out. He says, so do I. Let's try giving them one really big score for free in exchange for our freedom. She says, I'll have something in the morning. Daniel is with her every step of the way, clear to her home where she sits down at the typewriter. Have you figured it out yet? In 1975, they called it photographic memory. Today, we call it eidetic memory, which is really unusual because ordinarily we add more syllables. She has a mental picture of the document, so all she has to do is reproduce it in all its details on her own typewriter. No missing documents, no incriminating evidence, no idea how she's been doing it. Until now.
Do we just accept that she can remember page after page on one reading?
She soaks it up like videotape. Then later, when she's alone, she types out a transcript, word for word.
And according to your report, Paula wants to call it off.
If they can catch her passing documents, they can lean on her and use her to get to the real target, this contractor.
Wake up with Jack Pearson, Washington's meanest columnist.
What gets you up at dawn? Did your golden throat put the supper club out of business?
No, but you're warm. Paula's going out of business.
The contractor tells her what to do.
Pearson is their intermediary with the contractor. Is that the face of a slimy, smug villain, or what? Thayer David knew his appearance was likely to get him typecast, and he didn't care. He loved acting and put everything he had into every role he played. He had an intimidating face. He was also as big as a Kodiak bear and just as terrifying when he wanted to be. All through the 50s, he played gangsters in shoot-'em-up bang-bang movies and was both successful and popular. Unfortunately, not all of that bulk was muscle, and he didn't do a very good job of taking care of himself. He was just getting ready to star in a series about Detective Nero Wolfe when a heart attack cut him down at the age of 51. I used to read the Nero Wolfe mysteries, and he could have been the iconic representation of the character. It's too bad we'll never know. I don't know who you are or what you understand your position in the grand scheme of things to be, but I can tell you this without ever meeting you. The world needs what you have to offer. So please take care of yourself and stick around as long as possible. You matter.
She wants to buy her way out.
With what?
An eyes-only position paper on the salt talks.
Pearson says, I can tell you the contractor won't go for it. He already owns her.
They pay her for pocket money, Tony. They can take it for free anytime. Got her by the throat with both hands.
Tony says, we don't care. She does this and we're out. Nobody ever talks. We all walk away cool. That's the deal. He has 24 hours to reply. Now we know those construction guys are part of the hit squad. We also know Tony is an idiot. This contractor has already killed one man, so he delivers the dude an ultimatum and then walks down the street wide open, holding his arms out and saying, hey, look, I'm a target. After watching a report on TV about the shooting, Daniel wants to see the stuff they didn't put on the air. There may be something in it that can tell them anything.
Those hard hats.
Probably construction workers from the building site.
You know those stills you showed us of the SIA murder? Weren't there hard hats hanging around on those too?
Come to think of it, there were.
Kind of an odd coincidence that they happen to be working on the very streets where the shots are fired, isn't it? Daniel notices something else.
What's that mark on the curb?
An arrow, some numbers.
It's a surveyor's mark.
You see those all over the place. What does it prove?
I don't know. I think I'll find out.
Those marks are connected with the shootings, though I'm not sure it's ever made clear how or why.
Please excuse the interruption.
Last I heard, it's your office.
How long will it take to learn the classification systems? With your IQ less than a week. I know how to cram, but that would take a photographic memory. Is something wrong?
As my dad used to say, she's as nervous as a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs.
Let's stop playing interview. I'm pretty good at reading palms, and you're no starry-eyed job applicant. You're with the Klae Resource, aren't you?
I told you I work for the Klae Corporation.
Can I trust you? Don't answer me because I've got no choice. A friend of mine was shot at this morning. He's gone, disappeared. Am I talking to the right person?
Yes, you are. She lays it all out. Tony is in hiding, she's scared, and she's alone. She wants to arrange her arrest and protection.
I want to confess my part of it, and I want protection.
The man to see is your boss, Dr. Maynard.
Can't. He trusts me.
Paula, he already knows.
That took the wind out of her sails real quick. Dr. Maynard just wants to know why.
8 years ago, I started taking little blue pills. And then I started taking little yellow pills to help me stay trim and sharp and perfect. Pretty soon it was little packets of white powder, glassine bags, a spoon, a needle. They call it shooting crystals.
It took her 3 years to get clean, and she thought that was the end of it.
But one day I got a telephone call from somebody who knew my connection. A little pusher who sold things to close friends at parties. They told me to contact Tony Bernard. It was blackmail. I was alone. I went alone.
She assumed if her boss found out she was a former drug addict, she'd lose her job and everything else. And as she said, she was alone. There are some horrible places on earth to be, but alone is the worst.
All right, Paula. We'll help you. But you're no good to us locked up. I believe you when you say you don't know who's on the receiving end. But you're going to help us find out.
He says, keep going to work, keep doing what you're doing. Don't worry about getting in contact with them, they'll come to you. That's when we set them up. Daniel is checking out the construction company. If you need to get into a place or an area or a neighborhood or someplace like that, carry a clipboard. With that one simple prop, everybody assumes you're doing something legitimate and have a good reason for being there. On a site like this, throw in a hard hat and you can go almost anywhere unchallenged. He finds an empty office and starts poking around.
Hey, Joe, bring the case on in here.
He grabbed the hard hat, but he forgot his clipboard.
Grab the instruments and the laser.
Dino dropped it. I think the site's been at a blind.
We better test it out.
Joey, take a look at the gun barrel. We need cartridges. There's a box in the locker.
Then again, the clipboard may not matter.
Whose stuff is this?
Probably Dino's.
Hey, don't get that laser light in your eye. It can blind you.
Joey, it's got to line up with the barrel.
We test in the garage on a surveyor's tripod and we close off the area.
The clipboard doesn't matter. They didn't notice it. He follows them and watches them test their laser sight. Everything is all set, and it's not hard to guess who the target is. Speaking of whom, she just learned who Jack Pearson really is. She says, I'll stay in. He wants the document about the salt talks. She says, I'll have it for you this afternoon. We'll meet in front of a certain building and make an exchange. It needs to be public because I'm under surveillance.
Second table from the right.
SIA, DFI, nothing but the best.
Considering the importance of the SALT talks, one would hope so. SALT stood for Strategic Arms Limitation Treaties. They were top-level negotiations between the United States and the Soviet Union, and the goal was to cut down on the insane nuclear stockpiles that the two countries like to threaten each other with. Every sane person in the world, and most of the insane ones, knew that nobody wins a nuclear war. Humanity loses, and so do most other forms of life. So why the blue blazes do we keep pushing toward one? By 1975, both countries had enough nukes to destroy the whole world several times over. What was supposed to be the point? One of the first things Richard Nixon did when he became president in 1969 was initiate these talks. It took a few years, but by 1972, he and Soviet Premier Leonid Brezhnev had signed the Anti-Ballistic Missile Treaty, or ABM, which didn't really reduce the nuclear stockpiles, but it did seriously limit both nations' delivery capability. Which is to say, a big fat nuke isn't much good if you don't have a ballistic missile to deliver it to your enemy, so what's the point of having a big fat nuke? That was the focus of the second round of SALT talks, which began in 1972, somehow survived the whole Watergate thing, and continued under President Carter. That one limited both numbers of weapons and sizes. Neither country actually ratified it, but both more or less abided by it anyway. This second round of talks is what the position paper is all about, and what the contractor wants info about.
Yeah, Jack. She agreed to the drop, but I'm afraid the lady has turned against you.
How can you tell?
I know every agent in this town. These are Dr. Maynard's personal bodyguards. And they'd never be assigned to her unless the lady is cooperating.
That was a dumb move on Maynard's part, and it's possible his dumb just got her dead. Nick sets up the hit, and Daniel heard the whole thing.
He's a good guard dog, but the builders, they leave scraps from the lunch pails laying around, and mice get in the pipes, and he goes crazy.
That particular mouse is bleeding. He makes his way back to the office.
Hello?
Walter?
Dan. Dr. Mater's coming on with me. Where are you?
Walter, listen to me. We've got to act quickly. Paula Simon's in trouble.
Hello?
So much for that. He needs to get out of here. Or not. No phone, and he's locked in, and he wasn't able to tell them about Paula. I feel like I should be saying, don't miss our next exciting episode.
I wonder where he could be.
He's using the Klae resource to try to trace a connection to some construction work in the district.
What about the code name, the contractor?
Well, that's probably what started him in that direction, but we're afraid it's a dead end.
We better get going. Have your men set up a stakeout. Paula, remember you're meeting Pearson at 3?
It doesn't feel right. Something's going to go wrong.
It already has, but she doesn't know that. If she's that uncomfortable, call Jack Pearson and tell him something came up. She needs to change the location of the meet. Or something. They won't. They're sure they have all the angles covered. The question now is, what does he do when they get the door open and the dog has a clear shot at him? Okay, that works. Stop number 1, a first aid kit to patch up his foot and stop leaving a blood trail for everybody to follow. Instead, they can follow a bandage that's walking by itself. He's not that absent-minded. He uses some alcohol to stop the bleeding and leaves it at that. Stop 2, back at the office to retrieve his clothes and stuff. Too bad the dog had an unpleasant conversation with his shirt. Gotta peel again. I hope he has a spare head because he had to leave without that one.
Don't look back. I don't want you to get my description.
Take my change box. I only carry $5.
I don't want your money. Stop driving. Columbia Building.
I can't steer with your arm around my neck.
If I let you go, you don't look around.
Never saw you. I don't want to see you. I hope I never see you.
He says, after you drop me off, wait 2 hours and go to the Mayfair Hotel. Find Dr. Weston and he'll pay you. This is the weirdest hijack that cabbie has ever been in, but if he comes out of it alive and gets paid, he'll take it. It's going to be close. The gang is all here, including Paula, Kate, Maynard, Walter, a gaggle of agents, and of course the bad guys. They have their fake theodolite set up. They're about to start the jackhammer noise. Pearson is in position, and Nick has drawn his targeting mark on the sidewalk. You don't understand. In the way is where he wants to be, at least long enough to get out of the car.
Get on you! Run!
They're right. This thing shoots pretty good. How much you appreciate that depends on which end of it you're on. The entire espionage ring is busted, including Jack Pearson and his greasy smile. And now for my big frustration.
Yes, we received the commendation, Dr. Maynard. He's a little upset by the size of his fee. He appreciates the way the Klae resource tracked down Paula Simon and identified the receivers of the stolen documents. But he doesn't see what that had to do with the final capture.
The rest is throwaway. What became of Paula? Did they let her off the hook as they should, or did someone insist she had to be prosecuted anyway? It's a very important loose end that they left dangling. Even more frustrating is the fact that the script had to pass through who knows how many hands before it reached the director, and nobody caught such a glaring error. But I'm not going to let that spoil the episode overall. The story was very good. Paula was a sympathetic character who found herself in a situation she couldn't control. How many of us have been there, done that? Maybe not to the degree of espionage, but we've all had our I'm trapped moments. The invisible parts were great as always, and the sequences with the dog were especially fun. We never did find out when or how Daniel retrieved his head and hands either. I think he has several extras stashed away somewhere in case something like this happens, because the dog got hold of the ones he left behind. The next day his handler fainted when the dog pooped out a nose. While Daniel talks to Kate and bring... Okay, come on. Let's try giving them one really... The question now is, what does he do when they get... Okay, that works. Okay. Instead, they can follow a bandage. Slow down. I think he has several extras stashed away somewhere, and I can say extras.